Hi brothers and sisters, so hopefully you can hear me okay in this. This is going to be a series of videos now of my testimony, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail. The one that I did on my channel was quite short, and there's so many more parts to it that for the glory of God, I want to talk about things that are a bit more difficult maybe, and just more details that I didn't go into before, in the hopes that this will encourage you guys. It might speak to some of you that are going through similar things. You might have a similar background to me, or you might be going through things that I did, and all in the hopes of encouraging the body of Christ. And yeah, so I think I'm going to do this in sections. So bear with me. The first portion of these videos might be a bit dark just because it's before I came to the Lord, but yeah, it definitely has a lot of light when I meet the Lord in the story. And I'll just show you little sleepy Ted. Did a very long walk today. He's very tired, so he's just sleeping down here on my lap. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me, my background is in witchcraft and dark magic, and also light magic. Anyway, we'll get into that. And then I was gloriously changed and saved. Praise you, Jesus. So okay, let me begin. So I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. My dad, American side, my mum, English side. So my mum went to be a nanny in America and met my dad with the family there. And they ended up getting married. So my dad's side in America, all very strong, born-again Christians. So my dad was a Christian before my mum met him, and that whole family, really, most of them are saved. So my mum stayed there and married my dad, and then they had me. And then they had quite a difficult time. I won't go into those details because that's my mum's testimony. And my mum ended up bringing me back to England, where she was from originally, and then we were living in her hometown where she was raised, back with my family that more so leaning Catholic, but not really practicing Catholics. So through that difficulty, my mum shut the door on God, and my household was quite difficult in terms of it was not very godly. There was nothing to do with God. I think my mum became quite atheist and quite angry against God. I think she'd explain. She was quite angry with him, with what had happened to her and all of that. So there was lots of just drinking and partying, and at the time I thought the house was great fun because my mum was basically like my sister actually at the time, but we didn't get on because of that. We really didn't. We wrestled each other a lot, and there was just no trust between us. And she had another child with another man, and that's my brother, and so there's 9 years difference there. So I helped raise him, but there was still like resentment, and we were just really, me and my mum's relationship was not good. So then spiritually, so that's what happened chronologically in time. Spiritually, when I came to England, when my mum and dad broke up, I was almost 5, and I just went really, really sort of like an existential crisis. So at the ages of 4 or 5, I was just questioning why we are here, and I was always quite a curious child. My first words are like, "What's that? What's that?" I used to look, "What's that? What's that?" But so I was pulled out of where I lived with my family, my dad, everything in America, a whole other world, and then brought into England with another family I never knew at the ages of 5, so almost 5. So I was really kind of shaken up. I was really shaken up by this. And me and my mum didn't really have a very good relationship. I couldn't really talk to her about those sorts of things. And I think I ended up kind of going into this sort of world of escapism. And so I would think about what was behind the reality that we are experiencing. It was like a real strong sense inside of me that there was more to life than this. I think it's because my world changed so drastically that I questioned existence itself at such a young age. I don't know why. I don't know how I thought of those things, but I just did, and I got really, really fascinated in the realm of magic and quite dark stuff actually at the beginning, because when I got involved in it, I'd say I got really involved in dark magic and Ouija boards and tarot cards and all of that at about 9. And that's when I was getting a bit more serious, and I was doing things like, I even did things like voodoo. I was getting really into really dark things. I mean, partly I think it's because I was so oppressed at the time, and spiritually, I had such a heavy weight on me spiritually because I'd been involved in all this stuff at such a young age. And I taught my friend it as well at the same time. So she would have been about, I met her when I was 9. So I introduced a friend. Oh no, before that, sorry. I moved away from her when I was 9. So yeah, about 6, 7. I introduced another girl into, light-hearted stuff like potion making and I wouldn't have called it praying, but in a sense praying to the divine and asking it to show us the way. And we just opened ourselves up to the spiritual realm. And I think, well, if you don't know God, you don't know Christ, and you ask the air to show you and guide you, well, we know, don't we, that the enemy is the prince and power of the air. And so we got answers for sure. We did. And the beginning of all of that was quite harmless, as it were. We would do spells and change our eye colours, or we would call on the fairies, and then we'd get blue orbs come to where we left an offering to the fairies. And other things like, I thought I was keeping my grandma-in-law alive because I put a shrine up with her photograph and called upon all the powers here present. It was all very, very... I was just in this realm very much as an escape from the situation I was in the physical, I suppose. It was like my way to escape what was going on. So I was quite young doing all this. But it resulted... I'm sorry guys, this is going to get dark quite a few times through this testimony, but I remember being in school. I would have been about, I think it was when I was about 12 years old. 12, 13, 14, those years. 13, around 13 I think. I was so dark. I called myself a Wiccan. I don't know who influenced me into this. I would go to the libraries and find witchcraft books and write all of the spells out, go home and do all of these things. And all I know is I used to go to a neighbour's house when I was about 6, who was a Buddhist, and do like mantras. I still remember it. It's like, oh Lord, please take it away. This mantra that we used to repeat, and it's along the lines of earth worship and stuff like that. So I was doing that when I was about 6 with this Buddhist woman. I don't even know. I think she was my friend who I was teaching to be a witch. Her aunt or great aunt or something like that. And we would go into her house when we were playing out on the streets and doing our thing, and we would go to her house and she'd get the prayer beads out and she would teach us, and we would do this mantra. So all I know is when I was young, I was always involved in spiritual practices. I was living in that realm more than I was living in the physical, so in my head, you know. So the thing is, at the beginning I was like really intrigued and really like, wow, this is amazing, this is mystical and magical and, you know, fairies and really happy. But then I started going dark into like I said, doing the Ouija board and even making voodoo dolls. Like, you know, I got really dark. I was getting black candles and I was painting my nails black, and I went through a goth phase, is all I can say. And I called myself a Wiccan, and I got into black magic. But the thing is, it seemed so harmless before. Yes, we were having things manifest and we were having things physically happen, which we couldn't really explain away at the time because there was two of us doing this. But it seemed harmless, and it got to a point where I was like, this just got real. It just got so real. It's like I opened up, like I'm saying, when I was 13, I opened up a whole mess, kind of worms, and all of a sudden it started to devour me, and I started having just awful things, like dark presences in my house, like a 7-foot tall male figure, black, like void of any light, always following me in every doorway that I would go. I saw I saw demons, basically, and that's all I can explain it. And it was very small glimpses and little things which kept me even more in fear, because I wasn't seeing it purely. I'd see things like a hand go around the corner, and it would be going in the bathroom, and it was all like it's like a dead person who died in water, hand going to swing a light switch, and then I'd see that, and I'd see the light switch swinging, but I wouldn't see the hand anymore. But it was like the enemy was really playing with me. And one time I was in my bedroom, and I had such a heavy force sit on my head. It brought me down to my knees, out of the middle of nowhere, you know. And one time, I'll tell you a really small story. My dad kept sending me these weird little China doll figurines, and they freaked me out so much. And I think it's because I was involved in so much witchcraft and magic at the time. I think these dolls that I had in my room, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm just going to say it. I think these were used as a vessel for the demonic to enter into and be present with me. I'm just saying. And these dolls really freaked me out. I felt like I had to appease them. I didn't want them in my room, but I felt like I needed to keep them there. It was really weird, and at night I'd just put the curtain across them, and it was just strange. I was just so in fear all the time. And one time I decided, I was like, Mum, I really want to have these in the attic, if that's okay, just to put them away. And we put them up in the attic. And basically, in my bedroom, when I was laying in bed, there was like man-sized footprints in the attic, walking around, circling above my bed. Full-on man, like boom, 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 above, just kept going round and round and round my bed. And I screamed, and or I just got up and I ran out of my room into my mum's room. And the footsteps followed across the attic over my mum's room, and it wasn't just my imagination. So my mum freaked out. She thought it was actually a real man up there, and my stepdad actually nailed the attic shut because they were so panicked that there was an intruder, you know, and they didn't want to get in trouble. So they were thinking physically, but I knew it was something, because I was involved in such dark magic. And by the time I realised it was real, I was engulfed in it. I was constantly terrorised by it. And I remember I would, when I would speak, I'd count every word on my fingers. And if it was like a nervous twitch, like if I had space on this finger for an exclamation mark after the sentence, then I was okay, safe, I was good. But if my sentences went over and I didn't have that extra space there to do the exclamation mark, then I was doomed. It was so bizarre, and I was just like constantly counting on my finger. All I can say is when I got involved in magic heavily as a child, I was completely devoured by it, completely. But it was so slow at the beginning and seducing, and it was like I was getting more and more involved, and by the point I had opened all the doors up, it completely engulfed me, and I was petrified. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But the thing what got me worse was, you know, and also when I did Ouija board with my friends at that time as well, we were at my friend's house, and we asked it question, and it was saying what it was, and then we asked, oh, well, how can you see this? And it was going back and forth with my initials constantly, CJ, 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 and we were like, oh gosh. And everyone looked at me in horror, and they ran out of the room and they locked me in the room. Apparently my eyes went white. So, and I just thought they were having a joke. I was like, why are you guys messing with me? Come back in here. And they were truly horrified. All of them at once screamed, looked at me, screamed, and ran out of the room. And the next day I said to the whatever, obviously a demon now, I know what it was. I said to it in the morning, okay, well, if this is truly real, then make that over there move. And it did move. It was like a LED strip light heart hanging on a doorknob of a chest of drawers, and it turned and it spun in a circle in pure daylight. I remember all of us girls, it was a sleepover, there was probably about 5 of us, I can't remember exactly, and we just fell off the bed trying to grab the blanket. It was very scary. It was like the enemy kept just only giving me glimpses of the fact that something was happening, that it pulled me in to go, but is it really happening? Okay, let's try more, let's try more, let's try more. And by the time, it's so clever, because if you think, if the enemy just does a full-on fireworks show of like loads of demons and scary things straight away, you're going to go, whoa, stay away. But with me, it was like a little orb here, changing your eye colour there, a little thing here, and oh, okay, wow, what is this? What is this? There is something true to all of this, you know? There is something behind this. There is something spiritual. Maybe I'm onto something. Thinking that it was all okay, you know? So, Teddy? Sorry, my doggy's just near the door and he's about to bark, I think. So I'm sorry if he does. So yeah, it was just a really horrible time, but the ultimate point of all of this was I thought I was owned by the devil, and to be honest, guys, I really believed this, and I got to that point where I realized it was all real, it was all true, but it was actually pure evil. I was drawing pictures, I think I showed it in another video. I was drawing pictures of the crucifix with a pregnant woman hanging on the cross, bleeding out her child. And I was so dark. I was so dark, guys, because of what I'd got into. But by the time I realized it was all real, I thought it was too late. So what the enemy made me believe was that I was inherently evil. I was inherently his possession, that I was born a witch, I will always be a witch, I was the property of the devil, I was inherently evil, and I was his, and no matter what I did, even if I burnt my tarot cards and I destroyed all of my things, no matter what, I was always going to be his. It was like he claimed a hold on me. So it was just awful. It was awful. So at the age of about 13, I just, even though I knew that I couldn't do anything about it, I burnt everything, or I just binned it, I destroyed it, I got rid of it, and I just said, no, that's it, that I'm not doing any more of this stuff because this is just awful. I was sleeping at night with a tiny hole in my duvet to breathe because I was so petrified and terrified of the presence of something following me constantly right here, rushing up to my face, right in my face. I'd feel these feelings of something terrorizing me, and I had just an awful time of it. So that's the age of 13, and the house was pretty, the house at that point was pretty, how can I say it? My mum didn't really know what I was getting up to, is all I can say. We were all going about our own stuff. We weren't very close. We weren't talking so much about that. I remember my mum saw a pentagram I carved a pentagram into my flesh on my stomach. And my mum saw that and threatened to throw me out of the house if she ever finds me doing anything like that again. So I was kind of like, we didn't speak about these things. She obviously just didn't know how to deal with me. I don't blame her at all. And she kind of went to this point of like threatening to throw me out if I ever do. So I couldn't ever really speak. I was self-harming a lot, wearing those sweatbands, and just, it was just a really horrible time where I would just fantasize about ending my life a lot. So I told you this would be heavy. Sorry, guys. Then 14, then my mum broke up with my brother's dad. So then things got quite difficult at that point as well. Hang on, he was 4 when they broke up, and I was 9 when he was born. So what's that? 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it was 13. So the same year, everything kicked off, and I was going through all of that spiritually. So much whispering in my ear from the enemy. Then I had to buck up my ideas in a way and help my mum raise my brother because he'd gone. And that's just a whole nother story. So I stopped doing anything spiritual or anything like that, I just kind of avoided it, and I just let it kind of wean away, and I just started doing teenage stuff, and at the age of 14 had my first boyfriend, and he was in a band, and just doing all that sort of stuff, and I was in a lot of pain, and I kept going to the doctors, and I was wondering what's going on. I'm in so much pain with my spine. So then at the age of I think 14, then I was diagnosed with scoliosis, severe degenerative disease of the spine. So then I was like, okay. And they wanted to put metal rods in my spine and everything, and I just freaked out. I was like, nope, not doing that. So I looked at alternatives. Okay. So that got me back onto the spiritual journey, but I didn't even know, really. I thought it was, I was involved in dark magic, tarot cards and voodoo and stuff like that, before. This is more things like meditation and mindfulness and yoga. These things I thought were good for my spine. They would help me. So yeah, by the age of like 15, I think I started getting involved in yoga, stretches, and just trying to fix myself, fix my body, or at least try and help my body, because I was in so much agony, and I was only a young teenager, and they were pumping me full of adult amount of painkillers, and then I'd be immune to it because I'd be taking so much, and then I'd have to take something stronger, and by the end of it I was on tramadol and all sorts of stuff because it was just I was in so much pain. So this kind of put me into quite a spiral as well, thinking that the rest of my life is going to be chronic pain, chronic illness. So I started reading into things like mindfulness and trying to help my mind to just to try and focus my mind on positive things rather than just how much heavy and darkness I was involved in. And I thought that what I was doing in this regard, doing the light side of magic, because I could recognize the power of manifesting and things like that straight away because of witchcraft. And doing witchcraft, the intention is to manifest what you want to happen. So when I saw mindfulness and manifesting your thoughts to make positive outcomes, it was like, okay, this is basically witchcraft, but maybe a light side of it. Maybe I'm okay, and I'm not going to have demonic manifestations in this realm, in this side of this magic. I was wrong. This got me on quite a journey, and I was helping raise my brother. My mum, once she broke up with my brother's dad, she went on a bit of a wild one, and I just found myself being quite lonely. I had a boyfriend, I'd spend a lot of time with him, but I just was so broken. I just was so deeply broken and sad, and I had a lot of despair, basically, a lot of despair. And that started my journey of truther stuff as well. So I started looking into Illuminati and stuff like that when I was about 15, and all this while then I went to college, and let me think. I'm trying not to say the thing, a lot too much, because there's so much. I'll be here all day. So then at the age of 18, well, okay, but before that, all right, okay, I'll go there. So me and my mum didn't get on very much. I was spending a lot of time looking after my brother. I was doing a lot of things like yoga, mindfulness. I think I got involved again in tarot cards, but I thought I was doing angel cards, and this is nice. I'm just more mature now, so I can handle these things. It's just because I was a child before. That's why I was, terrorized. Now I'm wiser and better, and I can do better now, so I'll do it all over again, basically, is where I was at. And I had an uncle who was like my dad, basically, and I was 17, and something really bad happened with him. He sexually abused me. So then at that point, I was even more broken, and because that was like the person I trusted the most. And so, I'll briefly just go past that. I've forgiven him since I've come to the Lord for sure, but that was a difficult time. So I went to university the year after that, when I was 18. I went straight over to university down in Cornwall, so as far away as I could from the family, because what my uncle had done to me, I was having to keep it a secret, because I thought I was trying to protect the family and not cause harm in the family. And I don't know if any of you have been there, you end up blaming yourself when you have sexual abuse. You end up thinking that you are the bad person. So it was just messed up times. So I fled from my family, and I held that secret for 10 years, actually. Always going back to see the family and seeing him was just awful, absolutely awful. I went to university when I was 18, and that's when things got even worse because of the sexual abuse. I ended up being very, very angry against men, but I would use them sexually. So I would go out with the intentions of, basically sleeping with someone, and then, not really caring. I would kind of seduce men to really want to be with me and to like fall in love with me, and then I'd walk away. It was like I was trying to hurt men. So that wasn't I'm not very proud of that time in my life either. And at that point, I was taking a lot of psychedelic drugs, because I was trying to expand my consciousness, because by then I'd been deeply steeped in New Age. I was doing all sorts of mantras and meditations and yoga and just got really involved in all of that sort of stuff, and I paired that with psychedelics. First it was a lot of mushrooms, magic mushrooms, a lot of acid, ecstasy. Well, I did pretty much everything you can think of. I didn't ever do heroin, but I did lots of things to try. Well, mainly it was psychedelics, so to try and open up my awareness, so that I could. I think I was always just looking for peace, you know, and healing, really, both physically and spiritually and mentally, all of it. I was broken in every place you could imagine, and I was just really, really searching. I put my whole life quest was in searching for spiritual, physical, mental, all of this, a way for me to be healed. And I thought with these spiritual practices, I'm tackling the mind, I'm tackling the spirit, and I'm tackling the body, you know. So there's got to be something in this. And I thought it was really to do with the spiritual side, because of my, I've always been quite focused on the spiritual. So I think, right, okay, if I take a lot of psychedelic drugs and I open up my consciousness and my awareness to the spirit realm, then I can learn from that, glean from that, and I can evolve and move forward and learn and grow. And I had a pursuit of wisdom, basically. So that got me involved in some quite dark places. Ended up at one point having an abortion. Just, you name it, I've been there. I've been through it. So, yeah. So where do I go now? So I think now where was I? I was at university. That's right. So I was at university, and then I graduated, and I did my degree basically on fractals, on how I got a first in my degree, and it was basically explaining how we are all part of the one consciousness, how we are all one, how we are all gods. So I was heavy teaching people some really, really, really dangerous spiritual practices, that you are part of the collective consciousness. You are the universe experiencing itself subjectively. You are part of this one source energy, and you can create what you want to create through your intentions, and what you put into it is what you receive. And it was just all witchcraft, but I pulled loads of different science, pseudoscience, loads of different things, pulled them all together and started to promote this ideology, this religion, basically. And the universities loved it. So then after I graduated, I went back home, and I couldn't be there, you know, with someone who had done what they did to me, and I had to pretend like nothing had happened. So I had to leave, basically. So I went back and I lived on the land with a load of witches and pagans, and there weren't a load of witches, there was a load of new agers, and I got trained up for a little bit of time by some hedge witches, and they were doing Reiki healing on me. I started reading auras, I started doing all the chakra healing stuff, and then I started to learn Reiki healing, and I just got really heavily involved in that. And you know, I lived off grid for, I think that was, so after so I was at university in I graduated in 2011. So basically, I lived in two different communities for a period of time. I think one was for 5 years and the other one was for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember exactly, but it was quite a big amount of time that I was living on the land, and cutting firewood, keeping the fire going in the wood burner to keep warm, going and collecting water, having a battery that I'd go and charge to have my one single light in wherever I lived. I lived quite minimalistic, very, very old school way of living. Had to sleep in bed with fully loads of clothes on because I was just, it was cold. So I lived in caravans, vans, yurts. At one point I lived in a yurt, that was beautiful. And I was doing tree surgery there for a while, so the wood was good, keep my yurt warm. I lived there with a tortoise, a chicken and a cat. The tortoise I smuggled in my dreadlocks from Morocco. That's a whole nother story. That was going to be sold as medicine, so I was like, I can't have that, so I smuggled her back. But I just lived very much like this new age hippie, and I went on convoys with loads of hippies many times around Europe. Spent so much time in Europe traveling around and going to festivals. Psytrance was my thing, psychedelics and psytrance, all of that, and all of these divine encounters happening, and just, oh gosh, I've been around it where you are led by the universe, which is not good, to do certain things, and then you have confirmations from other people that are involved in this spiritual realm that also have confirmation to confirm to you that what you're experiencing or what you're manifesting is the truth. And it's just this whole massive web of deception, and those that are in it have no idea they're part of it. No idea. I was getting visions and dreams that would come to pass, and actually I'll do one story. So basically, and then I'm going to stop there for this part because it's getting a bit long. So for example, I had a dream, and in this dream I was dancing, and I did lots and lots of rituals where I would be in the woods naked with fires and wearing like fur, and and it got deep. And this one dream vision I had, I was dancing like that around a circular space, and in the middle had like a crochet object, and I was like, when I woke up I was like, what was that? My nan had just died before that as well, and I had this dream. I thought, what's that all about? And my friend called me and said, oh, Chelsea, there's a yurt for sale up the road, such and such is selling it. Do you want me to lend you the money until you sell your van? I thought, all right, I'll go and have a look at this yurt. I just realised, okay, that's a circular space. And then when I said, yeah, I'll have the yurt, or let me see the yurt, he showed me that there was this crochet sculpture piece that you hang in the centre of it. I was like, oh, that was in my vision. Okay, and then also he said, and this tree comes free with it as well. It's like a little crystal tree. And that's what my nan had in her living room. And I knew this little thing it was a connection with my nan. I was like, wow, okay, so this is a sign from the universe that I must do this. So I got the yurt and I put the yurt up. And, it was like, wow, maybe my nan, I was so deceived. I was like, the enemy was so detailed with small details to get me to do what he wanted. Like, look, this is from your nan, this little tree here, and then the vision there, and planting all of these sinister seeds so that I get more and more and more trapped by him. So I ended up getting the yurt, putting it up, thinking that it's all of the universe and it's beautiful, and that was the yurt where I became possessed. Backtrack, that's the yurt where I did the ayahuasca, amongst many other things in that yurt, which made me become, I don't know if I was possessed, but I was definitely oppressed spiritually, terribly in that yurt, terribly. Yeah, I suppose I should finish that off. So, no, the ayahuasca story is a big one, so I should probably wait. So, right, so basically, you know my history is I was involved in dark magic as a child, completely messed up by that, had a break, ended up having chronic illness, which then led me into light magic, healing, meditation, yoga, which then led me into, through bad things happening in my life, running away from my family home, living amongst a lovely community of people, but they were so deceived, full of every spiritual practice you can think of, Reiki healing, all of this stuff, practicing such things, and living off grid, really putting my heart and soul into this New Age practice, because it's what I did my degree on. Even I really believed this stuff, and it was all satanic. All of it. It was the root and the essence of the idea that you are part of the universe, that you are like God. It goes right back to the Garden of Eden. So I was fully immersed within the light side of Lucifer, thinking that it was all lovely, whilst the enemy was getting me more and more and more entrenched. She did the exact same tactic again, you know, of when I was a child, of small glimpses of things that seemed relatively harmless. So I got the year after a vision. I thought that was of the universe, and then I ended up doing ayahuasca ceremony in that yurt. So we'll leave it there for now. And from the ayahuasca to just short after that is when I call out to the Lord. So bear with me, this has been a hard video, I understand, but from here on there's a nice bit in the next video. So thank you. If you're still here, praise you, because praise God actually, but you know, it can be difficult to do the before you met Christ bit, but yeah, so I'll see you in the next video. God bless you. Bye.